The first thing is the people. Obviously, this business is about the connections you make and the people you trust. And the most important people that I trust in this industry are at this company.
The new beginning. Other companies are doing things the same way they've always done them. And so having a new opportunity to do things a different way is what really intrigued me.
I'd say from a sales perspective, what I love most is that we have really the best of both worlds. So we're a big multi-billion-dollar international company with great financials. But on the other side, we also feel very much like the small little family-run company.
I like the safety of First American, but they've got a human side to them, you know, a little softer, gentler approach. And I really appreciate that. And they've really given me a great opportunity to go out and try and build something for them.
In Colorado, guess what? We're all local. There's 4 local underwriters, and together the other day we have almost 125 years of local underwriting experience in Colorado. And I tell that to people all the time, and that's really the big difference. We can make local decisions quickly to get that deal to the closing table. That's the big difference.
We're a team, and we support each other and look out for each other, and it really promotes more business for us.
First American is all about a work-life balance, and the leadership is incredible because they truly care about the customers or the associates that work here.
This is our customer service department, and the marketing support services that are just completely robust. Marketing is a challenge for a lot of real estate brokers. It's something they have to do, but it takes a lot of time. It can be expensive, and we have a fulfillment solution that is far and away better than anything else that our competitors have to offer.
The leadership is very down to earth, and they move very quickly. So anytime I've needed something or had to support a customer or had to make a decision that maybe cost the company money or whatever, they're very quick to make a decision on that stuff.
You're working with people who have been in this market, in the Colorado market, for 30 plus years. At one point, First American was underwriting almost 70% of all transactions in Colorado, and some of those very people were working on those files.
I really believe our people are passionate about our company and do it better.
The first thing is the people. Obviously, this business is about the connections you make and the people you trust. And the most important people that I trust in this industry are at this company.
The new beginning. Other companies are doing things the same way they've always done them. And so having a new opportunity to do things a different way is what really intrigued me.
I'd say from a sales perspective, what I love most is that we have really the best of both worlds. So we're a big multi-billion-dollar international company with great financials. But on the other side, we also feel very much like the a small little family-run company.
I like the safety of First American, but they've got a human side to them, you know, a little softer, gentler approach. And I really appreciate that, and they've really given me a great opportunity to go out and try and build something for them.
In Colorado, guess what? We're all local. There's 4 local underwriters, and together the other day we have almost 125 years of local underwriting experience in Colorado. And I tell that to people all the time, and that's really the big difference. We can make local decisions quickly to get that deal to the closing table. That's the big difference.
We're a team, and we support each other and look out for each other, and it really promotes more business for us.
First American is all about a work-life balance, and the leadership is incredible because they truly care about the customers or the associates that work here.
This is our customer service department, and the marketing support services that are just completely robust. Marketing is a challenge for a lot of real estate brokers. It's something they have to do, but it takes a lot of time. It can be expensive, and we have a fulfillment solution that is far and away better than anything else that our competitors have to offer.
The leadership is very down to earth, and they move very quickly. So anytime I've needed something or had to support a customer or had to make a decision that maybe cost the company money or whatever, they're very quick to make a decision on that stuff.
You're working with people who have been in this market, in the Colorado market, for 30 plus years. At one point, First American was underwriting almost 70% of all transactions in Colorado, and some of those very people were working on those files.
I really believe our people are passionate about our company and do it better.
Good morning, I'm Julie Woodfin, Professional Development Coordinator for the Colorado Association of Realtors, and I wanted to thank you for joining us today. We have a great panel here with us to bring you all up to date on what our Government Affairs Division is working on at the Capitol, now that we are midway through this legislative session. But before we get started, I wanted to pass along a special thank you to First American Title for their support in presenting our Webcast program, which, as you know, is part of our professional development initiative here at CAR. Colleen Lopez with First American is with us this morning to catch us up to speed on some of what they're working on. Colleen?
Hi, I'm Colleen Lopez, First American Account Executive. Did you know that less than 7% of buyers use their real estate broker's website to look for homes? Yet the majority of real estate websites focus on searching for homes and capturing buyers' leads. If you want to increase your web presence and your engagement with customers on your website and social platforms, your focus must not be on IDX. If you want to learn more about what your focus should be and how to build great content and videos that will attract and retain your customers, contact your First American Title Account Executive today and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you so much for stopping by, Colleen. Now I have just a few short housekeeping items. We've allocated an hour and a half for today's presentation, though depending on the number of questions we receive, we may not use the full 90 minutes. We will take a short break in order to allow for questions. If you have any along the way, feel free to type those in according to the instructions there on your screen. Following the break, the panel will address as many of those questions as they can. Our moderator this morning is Mark Trenka. Mark Trenka brings a strong background in finance and sales to his role as the owner of Trenka Real Estate. Mark is a second-generation realtor, but before joining the family business, he worked in the automotive industry and in mortgage lending. Since taking on the leading role at the company, he has overseen more than 600 transactions totaling more than $130 million in sales. Mark has been president of the Denver Board of Realtors. He currently chairs the board of directors of MetroList, Denver's multi-list service for properties. He is currently the chairman of the Legislative Policy Committee of the Colorado Association of Realtors. Mark, thank you so much for being here today. I'll hand the program over to you now.
Legislators and other stakeholders, our goal is to come together to strengthen our industry and promote property rights. We are pleased to have with us today Rachel Nance, CAR's contract lobbyist, and Ted Leidy, CAR's Vice President of Public Policy, to update us on how the 2014 session is going so far and what items we can expect to still see in the second half of the session. Rachel worked at CAR from 2006 to 2013 and is now our contract lobbyist. Ted has been with the Realtors since 2008. Rachel and Ted will walk us through the key pieces of legislation that CAR is tracking, beginning with House Bill 1136. This is the bill CAR is running to restore our exemption as a nonprofit trade association to offer continuing education through our local associations to members and non-members.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning, everyone. I'm Rachel Nance. House Bill 1136 was something that we discovered over the summer months. There was a bill that was run last year dealing with exemptions to the Department of Private Occupational Schools, kind of regulations on those type of schools. And we noticed that in changing those exemptions, it impacted the education and continuing education courses that we provide to members and that local associations also provide to members. What it would have done was require all of us to then suddenly become private occupational schools and follow all of those regulations. And we were really concerned about the impact that this would have not only on our membership, but real estate brokers in other parts of the state where outlets for continuing education may be more difficult to attain. So since July, we've been working with Representative Primavera, who was the sponsor of last year's bill. This was truly an unintended consequence of the legislation that she ran last year. And thankfully, she's a strong supporter of our industry and was able to work with us and get the Department of Higher Education to work with us also. The bill has already been signed by the governor just last week. But it just clarifies that as a bona fide trade association or a nonprofit, that you can provide continuing education to members and non-members without having to follow these regulations. Anything you want to add, Ted?
No, I'd just say that, I'd thank Representative Primavera again and our Department of Higher Education. We worked with them in DPOS a lot on this. They were concerned early on about creating such an exemption and made it such a tight exemption. And through feedback from the other nonprofits around the state, namely CSAE, we were able to, I think, help them realize that really what they did last year upset more than just what trade associations can do. So we're happy again that our local boards, where we heard a lot from, will be able to continue to offer educational courses to both members and non-members, which was the key sticking point there. We know that professional organizations do very well at continuing the professionalism, so we're happy that 1136 has passed.
All right, thank you. Please keep an eye on our Capital Connections Weekly to remain updated on the progress of this legislation. Another issue that has come up in our state, even more commonly in recent years, is wildfires. Many people have lost their homes, and land has been burned down across the state. What pieces of legislation are you seeing at the Capitol this year that is going to help those victims of wildfires and floods, and to help property owners mitigate risk?
Well, we talked a lot last year on this webcast and over the interim about the governor's wildfire task force. And the task force wound up recommending a host of proposals that really caused a lot of concern for us and for property owners. Thankfully, we've not seen the legislature nor the governor run with any of these proposals and introduce any of the proposals that we would have opposed. However, they have done quite a few things this year. Our House Bill 1001 is a tax credit for property destroyed by natural cause, so it should help both those affected by floods and wildfires. It's an amount of the credit is equal to the property tax liability for the destroyed property, and it can only be claimed in the income tax year that the property was destroyed. But we believe it'll be a beneficial approach to giving aid to these victims. We also have House Bill 1009, which changed the wildfire tax or the wildfire mitigation tax deduction to a tax credit. The thinking here is that the legislature knows that a tax credit means a lot more to a taxpayer than a deduction. It's more of a dollar for dollar reduction on your final tax bill. It is a 50%. It is up to 50% of the cost a taxpayer incurs. Maxes out at $2,500 per year, but can be carried forward for 5 years. So you can do about $25,000 over 5 years of mitigation to reach the full potential of the tax credit. We know that that's not, it's kind of a bite out of the apple. We know that there's some certain mitigation efforts out there that cost a lot greater, but there's only so much money to spend every year in the budget. We think this is a better approach. We think more people will take advantage of a credit. We also believe financial incentives are a much better carrot for property owners than mandates, and we think it'll have a longer term impact and change the behaviors, more likely to change behaviors long term of people needing to mitigate risk on their property.
And Ted, I think you bring up a good point about, trying to incentivize people to use this tax credit. I think it's important for us, especially if you guys work in areas of the state that tend to be more higher risk or even maybe kind of medium risk, to really try to push that information out to your potential buyers as they're looking at properties. Because one of the things that can be helpful as a point of information for us in years to come is the number of people who try to claim that tax credit. So if we need more, or if we're seeing that 100% of the tax credit is being claimed, but then we can prove that, well, it's far more costly than what that tax credit actually provides, that will only help us down at the Capitol try to get more resources to people and homeowners to make sure that then, we're not discouraging people from purchasing properties in these areas, which happen to be some of our most beautiful areas in the state as well.
One other bill I'll highlight that has to do that CAR is supporting around the wildfires is Senate Bill 8, which creates the Wildfire Information Resource Center. It would be housed in the Department of Public Safety, and it's another one of those solutions that we believe is targeted, reasonable policy solution that will increase the education of property owners that there are risks out there, and here are some of the resources that you can find that will help you determine what your risk is and how you can go about mitigating it, whether it's finding a local tax credit program or having a firefighter come out and do a risk assessment audit, or the fire chief. We like financial incentives. We think that educating property owners is a better solution than creating time of sale mandates, and will have a lot longer term impact and change the behaviors towards wildfire prevention. So.
And keep in mind, we were pretty nervous about heading into this session, knowing that the legislature was running their own Wildfire Matters Committee and that the governor's task force was concluding its work. We did our best to remain relevant in those discussions, but also did a good job, I think, of making sure that people recognized our role in this conversation, even though we didn't have a formal role.
Yeah. Besides these bills, we're tracking about 7 other wildfire-related bills that range from fireworks bans to firefighter safety and then preparedness and emergency funds. Most of these bills are waiting Appropriations Committee hearing until after the budget bill is heard, which is being debated this week and next. So we'll know a lot more kind of on the full complement of what the legislature is doing in this area of wildfires, after the budget bill.
All right. Well, we're glad to see so many options brought forth on the Wildfire Matters Review Committee to ensure that property owners are being assisted, whether through the rebuilding process or mitigating risk. Now for a topic that we see frequently come up in the legislature, let's discuss split estates. There's a bill this year dealing with split estate disclosures, Senate Bill 9. What can you tell us about the impact this will have on our real estate contracts?
Well, this again is another issue we discussed last year, projected would come back this year, and it certainly did. It also came back with the full weight of the governor behind it. So it was really a bill, we're the last group, obviously, that wants to expand the real estate contracts. We've seen time and again and heard from you guys that expanding it, adding disclosures sometimes really only muddies the waters, and it doesn't really clarify for buyers what everything means in the contract. It invites more questions than it does answers a lot of times. However, we knew kind of going into this year with the governor behind it, and a lot of the other energy interests and whatnot, and environmentalists, that we were going to have to play ball this year. So what CAR did and what the LPC did, it was work to amend the bill somewhat favorably, we think. So Senate Bill 9 adds a requirement for sellers to disclose really that a separate mineral estate may subject property to oil, gas, or mineral extraction. We all know title advisory section already calls a buyer's attention to it in that bolded language. So CAR amended the bill, and the amendments really clarify that it's a buyer's duty to do their own due diligence regarding whether there is a split estate, and if there is a split estate, if they're worried about who owns the mineral rights or has an interest in the mineral rights, and will those be developed. What we didn't want to do is create a duty on the seller or the realtor to do that due diligence on behalf of a buyer. So we put in this duty language. Last year there was liability language, and I won't go into that, but we were really just careful and mindful that we didn't create a new duty for you guys or for your clients on the selling side. So we were happy to get that amended. And furthermore, there was a little, 2 little words you don't think really matter. It referenced, property being or near oil and gas development. We said, well, that's a little too vague for us, so we were happy to see the bill amended to read or adjacent. The reason being was we thought or near was a little subjective, where a seller and their realtor may have thought, there's no oil and gas activity near a property that they just sold. A buyer and their attorney might think differently, and that could invite litigation. So we were happy to see a little the words or adjacent replace or near. And lastly, we really applaud the Division of Real Estate and Marshall Waters' move to move back the effective date of this bill to January 1st, 2016. It was going to be, as introduced, it would have come out in our 2015 contracts, but to respect the Real Estate Commission's 2-year moratorium on forms changes, the legislature did agree to amend the bill, and it will not be enacted until 2016. Senate Bill 9 has been sent to the governor. We believe if it is enacted, and I don't see any reason why the governor wouldn't sign the bill, but we think the Forms Committee and the Real Estate Commission is most likely going to include the language in the title advisory section in the contract to buy and sell. It does give them a little latitude on where it should go, but it only seems reasonable that it will go in the contract since it's already using contractual language.
The only thing I would add is that, we did a lot of work to make sure that this was as minimally as invasive as possible, knowing that the trial lawyers were part of this debate and really were the ones who really upset the cart last year. So that always makes us nervous that if the trial lawyers are taking a very close look at our contracts, then what else are they looking at, and will that be an increase in litigation and legal problems down the road? So thankfully, I think we got the language designed in such a way that you guys are just fine.
All right. Well, we're glad to see stakeholders working together to ensure that legislation such as this does not become overly cumbersome during the transaction process. While the foreclosure rate has significantly decreased in our state, legislators are bringing bills forward regarding this process. Rachel, please enlighten us on what these bills are designed to do and how they can affect the foreclosure process.
Sure. This year we're tracking a few foreclosure bills. They've been pretty simple stuff. Again, no surprises really. Carryovers from last year as we fully expected. Representative McCann has been working on a number of them. The first bill, House Bill 1295, was just recently introduced. And this really was the major piece of foreclosure legislation that we dealt with last year. It died last year, and she kind of continued this idea through to this session. And it really, her attempt is to try to mirror what is happening with the CFPB on dual tracking and single point of contact. It gets a little tricky because we have a pretty unique foreclosure system in our state, as we all know. So to make sure that the terminology is consistent with CFPB and Colorado law has been a little bit of the rub, and timelines as well. But the primary purpose really, again, for 1295 was single point of contact and dual tracking, so that if a homeowner who finds themselves in a foreclosure situation, that they know that they have one person or a team of people, but really one primary contact with their lender to deal with on their foreclosure. This means that they could also try to pursue any loss mitigation options out there for them. There's a whole suite of timelines that go along with that as well, but that gives them at least some latitude to be able to pursue those options, and also to make sure that if they are going down that road of a loss mitigation application, which could be all sorts of things, including also getting out of the loan altogether without too much financial distress to them, that they're not being dual tracked. And so by dual tracked means that they're in a loss mitigation process while the foreclosure clock is also ticking down. So it would prevent that, and also provides the borrower, the distressed borrower, some options that if they feel like the lender isn't complying with these provisions, that they have an outlet to try to seek some remedy. Ultimately, the remedy really is with the CFPB, but Representative McCann was very adamant about making sure that Colorado homeowners could open up Colorado statutes and find some sort of guidance on what their remedies are. In disclosures to the homeowner, once a foreclosure has been posted, there will be information about both of these provisions, and also that they can contact the Attorney General's office to seek some help as well. Another bill that we've been dealing with is House Bill 1130. The genesis of this one kind of came out of a series from the Denver Post this late last spring through the summer, dealing with foreclosure cure fees and overpayments made by homeowners who were able to cure. Now, we know that this is a very small portion of people in a foreclosure situation. In fact, I think the numbers I heard for, I believe it was just Denver County, was less than 10% of people file the intent to cure, but it's even smaller than figures than that actually do end up curing. However, it makes full sense that if a homeowner is overpaying, that those proceeds should be refunded to the homeowner, not to the lender. And so what was discovered was that these overpayments were staying with the lender, and in some cases the lender was crediting it towards a future payment for the homeowner, but in some cases it seems that maybe those funds were just kind of lost. So Representative McCann once again put in some provisions to make sure that any excess fees paid to cure go back to the homeowner. I think it's a good piece of legislation. We were able to work out some details with her, but overall the intent was right on, and we've been glad to work with her on that one. Another bill that was just very recently introduced dealing with foreclosures was the extension of the foreclosure deferment program, and that's House Bill 1312. And as you guys may recall, this deferment program was put in place again to raise the awareness to distressed homeowners that there are options out there for them, that they could seek counseling, and how to find some of those resources. Since we know that this time period can be pretty scary for folks if they find themselves staring down a potential foreclosure. Public trustees, manage this process, but they wanted to make sure that they could be as helpful as possible. This deferment program now is going to be pushed out to mirror some other timelines that we have in place, and it really has just been extended to September 2015. I think overall everyone is fine with that, and actually that date coincides with the funds that the foreclosure hotline received from the multi-state Attorney General settlement on foreclosure settlement services. So three bills that we've been supportive of and have worked with the bill sponsors on, and hopefully it will make things a little bit easier for folks who find themselves in a foreclosure situation.
All right. Anything to add, Ted?
I don't have anything to add. I would say, this is the 10th year that we've done some sort of foreclosure reform down at the Capitol. I hope that after these three are done, that we can give it a little time to see what's worked and what's not regarding the reforms before we start reforming reforms, and they don't ever get to play out. But I think they're all three of them are concepts that if we don't necessarily entirely support, we're supportive that especially on 1130, that those distressed borrowers that are curing get the money that they deserve if they have been overcharged. So,
all right,
good work.
So, House Bill in 1130 in particular deals with consumer protection. Many real estate stakeholders have also been discussing the licensing of home inspectors as a consumer protection issue. How is this process going? When can we expect to see some legislation out of this Sunrise process?
Well, on home inspector licensing, we've got to think of a nice small section of real estate brokers, home inspectors, and even one legislator who was interested in pursuing this idea with us, or at least allowing all of us to kind of take a step back and look at whether or not home inspectors ought to be regulated. A lot of work has taken place over the last year and a half, and part of that was also having to deal with, I'll call it the bureaucracy at the state within the Department of Regulatory Agencies. And after being told that we needed to continue to go through the Sunrise application process, that is what we have pursued. And right now that process is underway. They're in their research phase right now, and so I suspect we'll learn more here in the coming weeks. But to our surprise this year, House Bill 1272 was introduced, and another real estate broker in the state also had an ear of a state legislator. And this state legislator decided to go ahead and introduce some legislation dealing with home inspectors. We were pretty surprised because she didn't consult with us, but we understand she's got a pretty good relationship with her real estate broker, which is, of course, what we all want, to rely on you guys as professionals. But I think we have discovered that there may be some need for looking at some sort of state oversight over home inspectors.
I would just say that I would just add that it was a big surprise to learn that we're going to have what they called a certification bill, but was really just a certification bill in name only, and was really a licensure bill. So we're happy to see that bill died in committee. We look forward to October when we do get the Sunrise Review report, and then CAR and the LPC will reevaluate that report then. And I would expect to see any further legislation in 2015. So.
And really part of the reason why kind of I'll call it a task force of folks who were looking into this was because this is one area of the real estate transaction that doesn't have any of this additional oversight. And home inspections have garnered more attention these days due to a change in the contract forms from about a year and a half ago, where some lenders are really paying very close attention to the inspection resolution documents, and in some cases throwing the transaction and the financing into question. And sometimes it's just stalling the transaction, and sometimes the transactions have been killed altogether. So we wanted to be part of this dialogue, and if it seems that regulation would help improve some of this and improve the quality of the home inspection work being conducted, that was really our interest in this.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for staying involved in this process. LPC took an opposed position to House Bill 1165 this year, dealing with mandatory retainage in private contracts. Can you help us understand the ramifications, if this bill had passed, regarding such a low retainage?
Sure. So 1165 would have required an owner to contract with a developer of a private construction project. This isn't public construction projects we're talking about, but it would have capped at 95 or at 5% the retainage that they're allowed to retain from their subcontractors or their general contractors. The industry standard right now is about 10%. So it was really the government coming in and saying, well, we think your voluntary agreed upon contract, the freedom to contract maybe isn't so sacrosanct anymore. We think that the subs deserve to get more money on the front end. But what it really didn't take into account, and where Carr really saw the key problem, was on the financing side. So when you have bank financing, the bank regulators, obviously we know from the residential side. But they're being told by different regulators that they have to have certain risk retentions, that they have to have adequate risk mitigation. So it's standard industry practice for a bank to require the developer to retain a minimum of 10%. That's really why you get the 10% retainage down the line. Sometimes it's more depending on the risk associated with the project. So until all the work is complete and waivers are issued by the subcontractors, banks will require 10%. So if you have a bill that says you can only retain 5%, someone's going to have to come up with that extra 5% because the banks most likely aren't going to. They don't have to comply with this, and they're not going to. They have other people they have to answer to. So that other 5% is definitely coming out of the pocket of the developer, the owner, and oftentimes they're just not going to have the financial wherewithal to do this, and it's probably going to mean less development is happening. So that's something we didn't think the bill took into account. We opposed it, again, because it also inhibited the freedom to contract. And we thought there was a bunch of unintended consequences. We heard a lot from other industry stakeholders that this would just invite a lot of litigation, or it was going to change, instead of retainage, they would just increase payment performance bonds, and you really aren't going to be fixing the issue. It's just going to move to another area, if you will. And that mostly subs and contractors and GCs and developers get along, and they've worked together well under this, I'll call it a regime. It's not really a regime, but under this industry practice. So we didn't really see the need for legislation. There was another conversation, well, we do already cap at 5% public retainage, but there was some key differences between public and private, namely that if you're a contractor working on a public contract and you don't get paid, you can't lien the property. You can't lien the government. So that's a huge stick the mechanics lien for subs that aren't being paid properly. We think that the statute already does enough to ensure payment and a timely payment. So we want to thank, this is one of our key talking points at Realtor Day at the Capitol. So we unleashed a lot of, 200 realtors to go talk to their members, their legislators about this bill. And thankfully, with their efforts and the efforts of our industry partners, the bill was killed the very next day in committee. So it showed you kind of the muscle of the realtors and the grassroots mobilization that we can do. So all around, it was a good result for us.
Good. We're grateful for your hard work, as well as the work of other stakeholders to help get this defeated. Colorado has a low supply of affordable housing. What effect do you see House Bill 1017 having on increasing this supply?
So House Bill 1017 was brought by a Denver legislator, Crisanta Duran, and her hope is really to look at increasing affordable housing development projects as soon as possible. So 1017 really reestablishes what was once called the State Housing Credit Program, and it was really successful at creating affordable housing and leveraging investment in Colorado. I think they estimate that it helped boost about 800 units in 2001 and 2002. So we know that there has been a slowdown of affordable housing units being developed in the state, and so she was looking at one way to try to help bring back some interest in doing this, because a lot of times these projects can be pretty costly to development, and if the state can step in and help incentivize private investment into these projects, then we should. We'll see how it goes. I know that there had been some concern about what the fund could potentially be used for, but at this point in the life of the bill, it has continued to stay pretty pure to and true to its nature, and I think that overall it could stand to be a good tool for all of us to have in our toolbox when it comes to affordable housing. We know that there's greater demands for affordable housing, and a lot of times these units can be used as kind of the entry into the home ownership market. So if we can boost that in any way, we will. We know that the state vacancy rates right now is about 4.5% in 2013. And so there's strong demand for this type of product across the state.
Yeah, the only thing I'd added is it's modeled after the low-income housing tax credit, which has been around since 1986. I think President Reagan's administration put it into place, and CHAFA, the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority in Colorado, has always administered that what we call the LIHTC credit, and the state, knowing that there have been a very good conservator, I guess, of funds, and that they do very good work, which we agree with. We have full faith that CHAFA has administered that program well, and they're going to be administering this program, and so this program is really supposed to be modeled after that federal program, and again, as Rachel mentioned, to leverage kind of federal funds and private capital as well, to increase affordable housing supply. It's what we think is a targeted, reasonable approach to affordable housing and growing the supply of affordable housing. So it's something that we were happy to get behind this year.
All right. Well, one of the many hindrances to affordable housing is construction defects. We haven't seen anything released on this just yet, but can you give us some insight into how your discussions are going regarding potential legislation on construction defects?
Well, I'll start by saying that we've looked at a lot of data, MLS data. We've worked with a bunch of industry stakeholders. The Metro Mayor's Caucus is big on this year. The Metro Denver EDC is part of the Denver Chamber. It's really being looked at as a business-wide issue this year. It's not something that's just homeowner or home builders and realtors and lenders that are looking at this, hoping to build more product. Everyone's looking at this now, that this is really an economic development issue in Colorado, and it's a quality of life issue. So we know that there are many willing buyers and sellers, especially on the younger end of the spectrum, people looking for that affordable product to get their foot in the door in home ownership, but there's just not the supply out there. And we know that it's not there because of construction defects, what we call SIDARA, how it's calibrated, I would say, right now, and how easy it is to be sued. And because insurance companies are very leery about insuring these types of for-sale condominium projects, we're just not seeing any supply increase in Colorado. We're seeing a ton of product, for rent. A lot of apartments are being built in Colorado, but no for-sale product. So it's really, and we have other considerations like the build out of fast tracks, and this is where the Metro Mayor's Caucus comes in. They're, especially where they have a transit stop or where they'll have one in the future, they're saying, well, I'm not getting that mix of product. I don't have the diversity of housing. I don't have the rental units, and I don't have the for sale units. And we need both to really have the social benefits that homeownership and housing brings to a community. So we're really looking at this, one, from a transit-oriented development standpoint, Two, that it is a sustainability issue. I can't spit that out. It does contribute to sustainability through increased density. It is an affordable project, and further NAR and APTA, the Association of Public Transit Association of Public Transit Agencies, or whatever APTA stands for, and NAR recently released a study that showed not only is it a desirable product, but they weathered the storm. This type of product around transit weathers the storm, from the Great Recession better than the normal product. And I think they said they did a 5-city analysis of pretty like-minded or comparable metro areas to Denver, and on average, homes near transit performed 42% better than homes that were not, from between 2006 and 2011. So we know that there's a lot more staying power for these types of product as well, if we find ourselves in the unenviable position again of where we were in 2009, 10, and 11. Anything you want to add about?
The only thing I would add is that, this dialogue really kicked up a lot last year. And the focus of the construction defects legislation that we dealt with last year really was targeted towards transit-oriented developments. So we have been pretty pleased to be part of that early dialogue, and then watching it kind of grow across the broader business community throughout the state. But we want to make sure, as supporters of fast tracks, that we knew would be a really great asset for making, helping boost and give our metro area the staying power as a first-class city by harnessing kind of the diversity of our residents, that we want to make sure that we're building on that asset as well, and so that there's tax revenues to continue its build out, but also making sure that people are able to live in communities where they want to, and maybe even live and work in those communities, but they have access to these transit corridors as well. We suspect that we will see some legislation here in the next couple of weeks. Your voice in these matters is going to be very important to us. So I guess I'll put a little call out there. If you have experience where you've been working with first or second time buyers, and they're looking for this type of product, a condo type product, near a transit corridor, let us know what kind of struggles you guys have run into, because we're really trying to look for some stories that really help articulate kind of this situation that we know that we are in.
Yeah. As far as what we, I think, hope to see, or where the conversation's moved is, there's been a conversation around, well, it only takes 2 unit owners in a condominium project to bring suit, which clouds the title, which involves every unit owner in there, and more times than none, or a majority of the time, not all the unit owners understand what's going on, that they've been brought into this litigation. So where we'd like to see is maybe an increased disclosure, notice, transparency to all the unit owners that, okay, we believe that there's a construction defect here. We'd like to enter into litigation, but you need to understand what litigation means for your property. One of the other issues that we see is with FHA and their condominium approval process. Well, if there's any pending litigation, good luck trying to refinance your home into an FHA product, and good luck trying to sell it, because oftentimes, especially on the lower end of the market, the only people the pool of applicants you have really to buy your home are going to be looking for FHA financing, and they're just not going to be able to get it. So it really, there's struggles with existing properties as well, and the ability to refinance or convey those right now. So we'd like to see, increased transparency, maybe a vote where you have a majority of those have weighed in, of the unit owners, and said, okay, we think this is a good idea. The defects are such in nature that we need to pursue litigation. But let's not allow 2 homeowners to capture everybody in here, especially when the vast majority of the units may not even have a defect in the property. So that's where we're hoping. The conversation seems to be moving in that direction. We're hopeful that, as Rachel alluded to, that we'll see a bill here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and the other thing I guess I would note is that, we have a pretty unique perspective as a Realtors Association on this, because we want to make sure that people who are dealing with their largest asset that they have, that they're protected as much as they can, but trying to create this balance between making sure that litigation is reasonable, and that for those, like you mentioned, for those units that maybe be impacted by this defect, that they're still able to freely manage their asset in the best way that they can. So we really see this as a pretty pragmatic, reasonable direction to go, and hopefully we'll have some agreement down at the Capitol this year.
And further to Rachel's point, we've been on both sides of the issue. We've divorced ourselves from the development community in the past, where we've thought that there was a recalibration, in 2003 and 7 that needed to happen, and we needed to make homeowners whole and be sure that they were made whole. We think that legislation in the past has done that, and again, we think it's time for another recalibration.
All right. Well, thank you both for your insights. We're so lucky to have Rachel and Tad working down at the Capitol on our behalf and to make sure our business is protected.
Thanks, Mark. We are now going to take a 10-minute break. The purpose for doing that is to give you one last opportunity to send us any questions that you may have. After the break, we will have our panel answer as many questions as they can, and we'll see you in about 10 minutes.
The first thing is the people. Obviously, this business is about the connections you make and the people you trust. And the most important people that I trust in this industry are at this company.
The new beginning. Other companies are doing things the same way they've always done them. And so having a new opportunity to do things a different way is what really intrigued me.
I'd say from a sales perspective, what I love most is that we have really the best of both worlds. So we're a big multi-billion-dollar international company with great financials, but on the other side, we also feel very much like the small little family-run company.
I like the safety of First American, but they've got a human side to them, a little softer, gentler approach, and I really appreciate that, and they've really given me a great opportunity to go out and try and build something for them.
In Colorado, guess what? We're all local. There's 4 local underwriters, and together the other day we have almost 125 years of local underwriting experience in Colorado. And I tell that to people all the time, and that's really the big difference. We can make local decisions quickly to get that deal to the closing table. That's the big difference.
We're a team, and we support each other and look out for each other, and it really promotes more business for us.
First American is all about a work-life balance, and the leadership is incredible because they truly care about the customers or the associates that work here.
This is our customer service department, and the marketing support services that are just completely robust. Marketing is a challenge for a lot of real estate brokers. It's something they have to do, but it takes a lot of time. It can be expensive, and we have a fulfillment solution that is far and away better than anything else that our competitors have to offer.
The leadership is very down to earth, and they move very quickly. So anytime I've needed something or had to support a customer or had to make a decision that maybe cost the company money or whatever, they're very quick to make a decision on that stuff.
You're working with people who have been in this market, in the Colorado market, for 30 plus years. At one point, First American was underwriting almost 70% of all transactions in Colorado, and some of those very people were working on those files.
I really believe our people are passionate about our company and do it better.
The first thing is the people. Obviously, this business is about the connections you make and the people you trust. And the most important people that I trust in this industry are at this company.
The new beginning. Other companies are doing things the same way they've always done them. And so having a new opportunity to do things a different way is what really intrigued me.
I'd say from a sales perspective, what I love most is that we have really the best of both worlds. So we're a big multi-billion-dollar international company with great financials. But on the other side, we also feel very much like the small little family-run company.
I like the safety of First American, but they've got a human side to them, you know, a little softer, gentler approach. And I really appreciate that, and they've really given me a great opportunity to go out and try and build something for them.
In Colorado, guess what? We're all local. There's 4 local underwriters, and together the other day we have almost 125 years of local underwriting experience in Colorado. And I tell that to people all the time, and that's really the big difference. We can make local decisions quickly to get that deal to the closing table. That's the big difference.
We're a team, and we support each other and look out for each other, and it really promotes more business for us.
First American is all about a work-life balance, and the leadership is incredible because they truly care about the customers or the associates that work here.
This is our customer service department, and the marketing support services that are just completely robust. Marketing is a challenge for a lot of real estate brokers. It's something they have to do, but it takes a lot of time. It can be expensive, and we have a fulfillment solution that is far and away better than anything else that our competitors have to offer.
The leadership is very down to earth, and they move very quickly. So anytime I've needed something or had to support a customer or had to make a decision that maybe cost the company money or whatever, they're very quick to make a decision on that stuff.
You're working with people who have been in this market, in the Colorado market, for 30 plus years. At one point, First American was underwriting almost 70% of all transactions in Colorado, and some of those very people were working on those files.
I really believe our people are passionate about our company and do it better.
Welcome back. We received one question during the break regarding water. Going into the legislative session, water issues seem to be a priority. What legislation have you seen so far this year dealing with water?
I'd say the LPC has tracking a number of bills. They've taken a position on just a few of them. One was Senate Bill 17, which started off really bad. We thought it would have required new developments to only have 15% or less, 15% or fewer, I guess, of the property could be irrigated grass. So it was really, I guess, a water issue wrapped up in a land use issue. And that's really how our friends at CML and CCI at the local government levels saw it too, and said there's, you can't usurp our power, our authority, because what it would have done is it said that if a local government does not have an ordinance such as limiting to 15% the amount of irrigated grass, then they were no longer, it was kind of a carrot stick approach, that they would no longer be able to determine whether there's adequate supply to build and develop new property in Colorado. And we, last year had a big adequate supply bill in Senate Bill 258, so we didn't want to have to revisit that issue again. Thankfully, clear heads prevailed, and the Senate sponsors have determined to turn Senate Bill 17 into an interim water study. So the interim water committee will now be taking that up this summer and talking about the merits or demerits of such a policy. But we really got put on an island kind of with the local governments and the home builders. A lot of the other traditional property rights groups like the Cattlemen's Association and the Farm Bureau and that are huge into water rights and property rights determined that they wanted more water to use, so that they were going to disrupt our property rights or the property rights of residential homeowners versus theirs. So I'm sure this will be something that we a renewed fight next year. After, it'll be interesting to see. And now I get to go to water. Rachel and I get to look at interim water committee meetings this summer. So always a fun thing to do. You want to talk about Senate Bill 103 is the other one that we've done a lot of work on this year.
Yeah, so starting, I guess, early in the fall, I think that's right, Denver Water came forward to the development community with a plan to address high-efficiency water fixtures for properties at the retail level rather than, I guess, the building level, so that you would capture not just new construction, but also existing properties as well. So really saying that unless these water fixtures meet this WaterSense EPA program standard, that they could not be sold in retail outlets in the state. After a lot of dialogue, the retail council and a lot of the big box shops said, okay, that's fine, that's no problem. Let us have an implementation date far out enough so that we can sell through our existing inventory so they don't have to write it off as a loss. There's been some experience of doing this type of program in other places like Georgia, and now I'm going to think
Texas and California have
you.
programs.
But then a wrinkle kind of popped up where a number of building code officials at the local level said that they didn't believe that these water fixtures complied with building code. As this happens a lot in the legislative process, everybody kind of got back together in a room. The presumption was that these fixtures wouldn't have caused a problem with the building code, and as it turns out, it actually doesn't fly in the face of building codes either. It just seems that there are some building code officials that just don't care for some of these fixtures. And we know, as I'm sure you guys know too, people get very concerned about the pressure of their shower heads, and so that tends to be a big question. Well, can I really get clean if I've got this low pressure shower head? And the Denver Water folks contend that these fixtures have come a long way in their development and that everybody should be fine. I think for the most part, emotions have settled down a little bit on the bill, and it's kind of just going forward.
But yeah, we're seeing a lot of other bills that are kind of responses to the floods, how to mitigate the next flood, if you will, which probably won't happen for another 300 years, but I guess it's good to be prepared. A lot of stuff working in districts 164, which is the South Platte Basin. We've seen a lot of information or a lot of legislation come out. There's a study in 2012 commissioned through legislation, and there's a new bill out this year that wants to continue that. But if you own a water right on the South Platte, everyone that I've talked to, the lobbyists that represent those interests, are very nervous that it's not just going to become a study, it's going to become a mandate. And then we also have the Colorado Water Plan, which the governor, I guess, started through executive order, which is still, I think, really unclear. And there was one other piece of legislation this year, also I think more turned into a study. I can't remember. It was Senate Bill 115, if memory serves, And it was the legislature's way of saying, well, Governor, you can have a statewide water plan, but there's 3 branches of government, and the legislature needs to be able to weigh in on Colorado water policy. So whatever your Colorado water plan becomes, it's going to come through the legislature, and we're going to put our check and balance on it. So we'll see what else. That I'm sure there's going to be some more weight bills that come out, and I wouldn't be surprised to see more water bills come out.
Yeah, while we only have, I think, 42 days left in the session, that's still a lot of time left to actually get stuff done, and I'm sure that there are still late bills looming around out there that we just haven't.
Last year there were
number.
We were in the last week, and I think the last 3 days of the session, and they were introducing legislation. So I think we're right around 500 bills this year that have come out. Usually we're between 500 and 600. So we still have our work cut out for us, I'm sure.
All right. Well, that looks like all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining CAR's mid-session webcast. Now back to Julie.
Thank you so much, Mark, Rachel, and Ted. We greatly appreciate you all taking the time to update us on all the work you have been doing at the Capitol, and we look forward to hearing a final report from you in a few weeks. Thanks again to First American Title and their continued support of our webcast program. And of course, we want to thank you all for joining us. You can find a full schedule of upcoming webcasts by visiting coloradorealtors.com. Our next presentation will be a 2014 annual commission update on April 2nd. Space is limited for that particular class, so register today by visiting our website. Another easy way to follow our webcast program and to receive automatic updates on upcoming presentations is to click on the green follow button on the right-hand side of your screen. That's it from here. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
The first thing is the people. Obviously, this business is about the connections you make and the people you trust. And the most important people that I trust in this industry are at this company.
The new beginning. Other companies are doing things the same way they've always done them. And so having a new opportunity to do things a different way is what really intrigued me.
I'd say from a sales perspective, what I love most is that we have really the best of both worlds. So we're a big multi-billion-dollar international company with great financials. But on the other side, we also feel very much like the small little family-run company.
I like the safety of First American, but they've got a human side to them, a little softer, gentler approach. And I really appreciate that. And they've really given me a great opportunity to go out and try and build something for them.
In Colorado, guess what? We're all local. There's 4 local underwriters, and together the other day we have almost 125 years of local underwriting experience in Colorado. And I tell that to people all the time, and that's really the big difference. We can make local decisions quickly to get that deal to the closing table. That's the big difference.
We're a team, and we support each other and look out for each other, and it really promotes more business for us.
First American is all about a work-life balance, and the leadership is incredible because they truly care about the customers or the associates that work here.
This is our customer service department, and the marketing support services that are just completely robust. Marketing is a challenge for a lot of real estate brokers. It's something they have to do, but it takes a lot of time. It can be expensive, and we have a fulfillment solution that is far and away better than anything else that our competitors have to offer.
The leadership is very down to earth, and they move very quickly. So anytime I've needed something or had to support a customer or had to make a decision that maybe cost the company money or whatever, they're very quick to make a decision on that stuff.
You're working with people who have been in this market, in the Colorado market, for 30 plus years. At one point, First American was underwriting almost 70% of all transactions in Colorado, and some of those very people were working on those files.
I really believe our people are passionate about our company and do it better.